How's it going, everybody? This is Martin Stokes here.
And this is Dean Scurry.
And I am a traveller.
And I'm a countryman.
Welcome to A Traveller
And a Countryman
podcast. What do you want to talk about this evening, Dean?
What do you want to talk about, Martin?
I don't know. I was thinking about... Do you remember one time when we done one of our podcasts there a little while back, yeah? We sort of said we were going to try and talk a little bit about, say, homeless on the streets, basically. Not homeless in the... You know what I mean? Homeless and hungry, it sort of refers to the one kind of thing. How do you know if, for instance, if you were walking down the street now, for instance, right, and there was someone, say begging, for instance, right, how would you know if you were to give them money, for instance, right, whatever, maybe a couple of euros, like, how would you know what they'd really want it for? Would it be, like, say, alcohol or...
drink, drugs,
food, which most important would be food. We know that for sure. So, what would you say to it now if you did see somebody on the street and had their hands out or maybe a little cup or something, looking for a couple of bob?
Probably wouldn't say much.
Would you stop and have a chat with them or say hello?
I done that the other day, but then I was thinking it's none of my business what they get out of if I give them something.
You mean if you gave them a few pounds?
If I gave a fella, I sat down and gave, there was a Roma fella, a fiver the other day, and was having me lunch with me mate, came out, there was a girl, I didn't see her until afterwards, but there was a Roma fella sitting down, I gave him a fiver, sat down with him for a minute, asked him who he was, where was he from, had a chat with him.
Very nice.
Put a fiver in his cup, jumped up, walked down, and within 10 feet I seen another girl. This is in a nice kind of part of Dublin, and what was going through my head was, do I give her a fiver as well? And then the next person, do I give them a fiver?
Yeah, you could think that way, but the point about it is you mightn't have fivers to give everybody.
I don't think there's enough money to give out to everybody. I don't think that's the solution, giving out people the money.
What if it was, like, say, two people there and you only had a fiver?
Yeah, I don't know. These questions are they sound very simple when you say them, but when you're in that situation and you see 1, 2, 5, 10 homeless people and you have 50 pence, a five or 500 euro, how do you know who to give it to, how much to give it to them, how often to give it to them?
Would you, if there was two there, would you give it to them and say, here, share that?
If I had a fiver, I don't know. I've often seen a couple of homeless people.
So you wouldn't give it to none of them then, is that what you're saying?
I've often not given it to anybody. Yeah.
Yeah. But is it not better, say, for instance, if they wanted that fiver for food now, and you thought, look, I'm going to give.
So that goes back to the point. How do you know what they want it for?
Yeah, that was the question.
And is it any of your business?
I don't think it's anyone's business. No.
Let's say the thing that people, the majority of people would, if they're giving money to, say, somebody who's sitting on the street, in the back of their mind, there's a little voice going, I hope they're not going to get alcohol or drugs out of this. But it's actually, I would imagine, none of your business.
Yeah. The thing about it is, if it's alcohol or drugs,
yeah,
well, then you're contributing to something that you probably shouldn't be contributing to, for starters. If it's food, you're doing a very good thing, because, like, the hunger hunger is probably one of the worst pains out there for them, like, you know what I mean? They're on the streets, they're probably cold or whatever it might be, whether it be summer or winter or whatever, depending on the weather. So if they're hungry, then it's another story. I think...
so how do you know?
Somehow I think they can do without drugs, and somehow I think they do without drink, depending on how bad a state they're in.
I don't know that. I don't know that that's
it's hard
true.
To say. It's hard to say.
It's absolutely impossible to say.
But is the first thing that come to your mind, they might be hungry, at least to have something to have a choice.
Great, okay, so that makes sense to you. But let's say that they say, yeah, I'm hungry, give us a tenner, and you give them a tenner, and then they go, yeah, I'm using this on drinking drugs.
Well, I'll give you a small example on that one, right?
Yeah.
I drove through, what do you call it one time? I know how the kids asked you to just drive through the McDonald's and that, yeah? So driving through anyway, and there was this lad, he was standing right in the corner of McDonald's. So he said to me, he said, at the window, he said, I need spare change, whatever. I said, yeah, I said, you're hungry? I am, he said. I said, okay, so order a bit of food there, so I'll pay for it at the window, like that gentleman. But he looks, and he's sort of kind of amazed kind of thing, you know what I mean? He, no, I don't want no food from there, he said. I want I want, what do you call it, KFC. So I said to my own mind, are you sure you're hungry? Because if you're hungry, you're not going to look for these kind of choices, like, you know what I mean? I'm not hungry, he said. He said, just one change. So I did. I gave him a bit of change then still, but I had the feeling what he wanted for then, like, you know what I mean?
Which was what?
Seriously, probably drugs or probably drink, I don't know.
Is that all right with you, or is there a problem with you?
Did you ever look at somebody and you might see, like this, I'm talking about this young lad in particular, right? Did you ever look at somebody and you might sort of say, right, if they're asking you for a few bob, you can almost tell by looking at them if it's a drug problem or drink problem they have.
Yeah, so what I'm asking is that a problem for you?
Let's say I don't like to see anyone on drugs, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It'd be a problem for me feeding his habit, yes.
So let's say feeding his habit is the thing that makes him get through the day.
But at the yeah, this is it. What I'm getting at. At the same time, my heart would go out to him. Like I would genuinely feel sorry for him. So I'd have to overlook that part of it, and just take into consideration. Look, he's stuck with a few bob here. Like a lot of them will come and ask you about like you get almost every day. Being honest about.
Yeah. So you're talking about homeless street sleepers or rough sleepers?
Yes, or around, mainly around the garages, the petrol stations.
Yeah.
Or again, these drive-through takeaways or whatever.
Oh, I seen a fella. This reminds me of something, okay? I'm interested in exploring this because I think there's conversations to have in this country about stuff like this that you just don't have, you know, that we don't, you know, you might hear them on the RTE, on Joe Duffy or something like that, but I find them very patronising. What I'm interested in this story is that this stuff is people's daily life, daily experience. And a lot of guys that I grew up with are in this boat. A lot of people that I know are one or two mistakes or one or two steps away from being in this. So anyway, I was at this garage and it was pissing out raining and I seen this fella and I think I probably gave him a few quid and I had a chat with him. I usually ask people, where are you staying, where are you sleeping? And this fella pointed to something in the garage. And I was like, what are you pointing at? And he goes, that's where I'm sleeping.
The big coal box.
The coal box, the coal bunker in the garage. The coal bunker where you get your turf and your gas and your briquettes and whatever.
They're what? They're about 4 foot high, aren't they?
So that's probably where he was sleeping.
Width. They're about 6 foot in length.
About 6 foot in length. And that was his bed. For all intents and purposes, that was his home.
Yes, exactly.
So it's none of my business what he's spending that fiver on. Because if that's where he's living, and if taking drugs is the thing that gets him through that hour or that day, I just need to shut up and get out of the way.
Well, the side of it I'd look at that is the sad side of it. I wouldn't be, as I said, I wouldn't be interested in feeding his habits, being honest about it.
Yeah.
But I would feel sorry for him, the fact that he's actually caught up in that situation. Like the fact that he might be on drugs, the fact that he probably, let alone drugs, he might be wanting drugs, but he might be starving with the hunger also. Yeah,
the thing that I try and do with it, and I've kind of learned this, I picked this up from having different interactions with various people who are struggling, let's say, is that a 5 minute or a 2 minute or a 1 minute hello conversation, who are you, where are you from, try and shake someone's hand, try put your hand out to them for them to shake your hand, is it can put a smile on someone's face who's in the depths of it.
Yeah. See, some people are maybe in that situation, but probably not by choice.
I don't think...
You've often heard the word saying, look, they choose to live like this.
They choose to live like that. I think that's a ridiculous, naive statement to make.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's choosing to live rough on the streets unless they have extreme mental health issues. And then you can understand. We had mental health institutions full of people, and then we, in the 80s and 90s, we kind of closed down all those institutions. So, you had the myth or the fantasy version of a homeless fella, which was a drunk man, in town with a smell off from drinking alcohol and all that type of stuff. And we used to say, some of them choose to stay there.
Yeah.
Because, somebody might have asked them, do you know where to stay? Or I'm grand where I am. So there's a myth that these people choose to be in the shitty situation they're in. But it's not a myth that they choose to sleep on the streets as opposed to sleeping in... No. Sorry, 1 second. As opposed to sleeping in manky, dangerous hostels.
No, that's right. Have you ever heard people like judging them, Dean?
Yeah, like I'm not immune I'm not immune to doing that myself. I'm sure I have judged or had prejudice or had preconceptions of
With people sleeping on the streets.
with people sleeping on the
Or
streets.
begging
With
at a
anybody.
garage, or begging at a...
With anybody, yeah. Like, I think probably the first time I seen a Roma person begging, the typical thing is like a woman sitting there on the ground with a cup and a blanket, and you'd have a preconception or a prejudice in your head.
What do you mean preconception now?
Like,
As a traveller, Dean, I probably wouldn't understand that word.
Like, I think one of the first preconceptions or prejudice that I had was these people are just here to make a couple of quid. They're just begging. They actually probably live in a house somewhere.
Yeah, I know
So you kind of tell yourself a few of these stories.
Yeah, I tell you where probably a lot of that came from. That probably came from the buskers in London years ago.
Right.
Where they used to they get out of their good cars. Like this, I've seen this on the newspapers now, whether it's true or not. And they'd get onto the tubes, as they called them, the trains, but they were called tubes. And they'd head out somewhere the far side of town probably. And then down into the tube, say, they call them the tubes, but you have like tunnels there as well.
Yeah.
So they do a bit of busking down around there.
Oh, in the undergrounds. Like.
And they'd be getting great wages out of it. Like, it was like a day job for them, yeah. But the thing about it was then they get back on, when they're finished, then they get back up onto the tubes again, trains again. Just used to call them the tubes. They're all underground trains. And they'd head back to where they came from again, back out into their good clothes and into their, say, good cars. So, but the thing about it is, you might have one or two, say, people that does that. That doesn't mean that everybody is the same.
Yeah, but it's easy to tar everyone with the brush. We talked about
Well,
this
it's
before.
easy.
That's
No.
kind of what we do as people. It's easy for us just to have one category. These are all beggars over here, and that's what they're doing, because
Yeah,
then we
but-
don't have to deal with it.
No, you haven't. It's all about, I think it's about us taking on attitude against it.
Yeah, because it works as a kind of safe place for us to be in our heads. Oh, yeah, the smelly homeless people, that's what they do. They're just looking for drink and drugs, and there's not a real person in there. And God forbid I spend 5 minutes sitting down with them, listening to their story. Sure, what's the benefit of that? I'm just going to walk away from here in 5 minutes and they'll still be left there. But I have found that there's huge benefit in that. Like that guy who was living in the coal bunker in the garage, talking to him for 5 minutes and him, just having a normal conversation that wasn't based around him begging or people judging him, or
Yeah.
I think that you could see it in his eyes that he got a lot from it.
Right.
Just
But-
that human contact.
Could you also tell you had a choice that he wouldn't be there?
Absolutely, yeah. You could see his mental health deteriorating kind of in front of your eyes. You know what I mean? That there was just a whole load of emotion in behind the eyes.
Yeah.
But when he got to chat with another human for 5 minutes, you could see the humanness coming out of him, and he was no longer this smelly homeless beggar, drug user on the streets.
Yes.
He was whatever his name was, Tony, for
Yeah.
5 minutes.
So basically saying hello to him made him feel alive again, kind of thing, just for a bit.
And I think that there's probably more humanity in that than there's £2 or there's £3.
Yeah, there is, being honest about it. It's nice to say hello to him also, but does hello take away his hunger for him? No.
No, and I get the point. I understand.
Like, we can all say hello 100 times in one day if we want, but will that take away his hunger if he's hungry?
No, and I remember my dad had experience on the streets. He was homeless for a while and he was helping out with the soup kitchens. And he said to me something that was really simple and interesting. It was a perspective that he picked up, and it was the acronym is HALT: hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. Yeah. And if you can help somebody with any of that, mainly the hunger, if they're not hungry, they'll less likely be angry and tired,
lonely.
and then less likely be lonely. So
But
a lot
the
of the soup
chances
kitchens,
chances are that they're all of them.
Absolutely. And a lot of what the soup kitchens do here in this city and in other cities around the world is that they provide, and it's usually run by women, they provide a space where people can come over to them, have a quick chat for 5 minutes, maybe get an old jacket or a pair of gloves or a sleeping bag and a bit of, reasonably cooked fresh food. So hungry, angry, lonely and tired. HALT, that was the acronym that he gave me. And it just gave me an interesting perspective.
Yes.
And it's not all homeless people that, I think we know that now in this city. It's not just homeless people that use those facilities that are set up by various groups around the city.
Okay.
Because we have food poverty in this country. Whether or not we see it on the RTE, we have food poverty. We now have fuel poverty.
That's right.
We have accommodation poverty, as in there's a lack of affordable accommodation for people.
But it's a sad world in a situation like that. But yeah, I do, as I said earlier on, I do know. Let's say I've heard people saying, he's okay, so he's only going to spend it on this, he's only going to spend it on that. Or he probably has a good car around the corner. He probably has a new house.
Yeah, and it's an easy way for us just to go get rid of him.
It's an easy way to try and, try and cleanse our conscience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sort of satisfy ourselves in a way, as you said, getting rid of them. Yeah, very simple. But what about just making a little stand for a minute or two and sort of trying just a little bit of help? No matter how little it is, every little bit helps anyway. I know we were saying earlier on about if you had a fiver in your hand, you wouldn't know who to give it to. But is it not better just to feed one person and not feed nobody at all?
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to say, feed one person, don't feed the rest of them.
Exactly,
But if you can feed one at least, isn't it better than feeding none?
Yeah, so I remember listening to this guy, Ramdas, who I listened to a bit, and he went to India and he seen this, what he's seen as poverty on the streets of India. And he used to have a little bag and he'd have coins and he'd be handing out coins to different people.
Yes.
And the more kind of poor looking they were, or the more diseased they were, or the more, they didn't have use of their legs or something like this.
Give an extra couple of coins.
He'd give them an extra couple of quid.
Yeah, very good.
And so he had this little plan he had, you know what I mean? Now I see the fella with the one eye and no hands, I'd give him this.
Yeah, he'd look after them a little bit better, like.
But then he realised that all those fellas were all tied into a homeless union anyway. So all the money got split between them equally.
Right.
So no matter what plan he had and what way he had of thinking about it, they had their own plan to do with the money.
Yeah.
And that's kind of going back to the homeless person who you give a fiver to. It's none of your business what they spend the money on.
It's not. But you would like them to. You'd like to think.
But it's still, no matter what you'd like, it's nothing got to do with you.
No,
as soon as you hand them over a couple of quid,
they're going to do what they want to do anyway.
It's game over for you. Touch on and stop being so selfish.
So would that stop you? Well, it's not being selfish. I don't think that's selfish.
No, what I'm saying is don't get caught up into what they're spending the money on. Yeah, but I still don't think
that's selfish. Would it bother you to know what they did spend it on?
No, I've no interest. I've no interest
Let's
whatsoever.
put it this way. If you give, say you give a lad a tenner, I'd just say.
Yeah.
Now, I know it's not a big lot of money, but it's a lot if someone hasn't got it, right? And next, say, 3 minutes after you went to a shop and you come back out and you see the same young lad at a corner and he's trading his tenner for something like that, you know what I mean?
For drugs?
Yes.
There's none of my business.
I understand.
I've learned that's none of my business.
I know it's not. Would you like to see it though? Or would you rather he went into a shop, bought a bit of food, come out and you see him eat a bit of food when you come out 5 minutes after?
I know that in the community that I grew up in, people are eating, smoking, drinking, doing drugs, and it's none of my business what they do. That's where they're at.
Well, not everybody looks at it like that, Dean. Be honest about it. I don't look at it like that. I know a lot of people that don't. For me personally, if I saw someone outside a shop or a garage and they were say begging, for instance. Now, don't get me wrong. I have done it numerous times. I'd hardly pass them by without getting a few bob anyway. But I would ask them, "Are you hungry?" I've done that numerous times, and they'd either say yes or no. If it's no, throw them a couple of euros. If it's yes, I'd walk into the shop, pick up a sandwich or a drink or whatever I could afford. Look at you spend now 5 or 10 on them anyway, and come back out and pass them that. Then you'd know. At least I know anyway that it was something is a good thing to do, like, you know.
So I'm going to be very honest with you. I've had conversations with people in this community, and I've said, "Are you hungry?" And they said no. And I said, "What do you need?" And they say, "I need crack."
Yes.
Okay? In my community.
Yeah.
And I'll still give them the money. Because that's where they're at.
I understand what I wouldn't.
I know that. And I'm not judging you on it.
Supposing
But what I'm saying is,
supposing
I
you
take
give-
them for. I've learned to not judge them and take them for where they're at, because it's none of my business.
So are you actually helping them to kill themselves or what?
I don't know.
I'm
if
not
that's,
saying
I don't know if that's
intentionally,
helping them to kill
and
themselves.
I know that's a solid word to say, but at the end of the day, if you know they're going to take drugs, and especially dangerous drugs.
So we're getting into
I
a
know-
drug conversation here.
No,
the
not
biggest,
really,
the
no.
biggest killer in this community isn't drugs like that. It's the drugs that's sold legally. It's the alcohol and the cigarettes is the biggest killer. So nobody would have a problem giving a $5 to someone begging on the streets for them to go in and get cigarettes.
Yes.
We wouldn't judge it the same way. But the biggest
No,
killer
that's right, you
in this
wouldn't.
community isn't the hard drugs. It's the other drugs that are being sold over the counter legally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying like sort of slightly prescription drugs, like.
Well, cigarettes and alcohol,
All right.
you know.
But anyway, as you said there, it's probably their own business what to do with it afterwards.
It's definitely none of my business. I might think it's my business.
Now, I've often got the ones where they come in and maybe asking you, like, say, at the garages or maybe a shop. I was often parked outside the shop and they would tip on the window. And they'd be asking you for a few bob, saying they're trying to get into a homeless shelter. And yes, I would, if a few bob me, I'd contribute to that, to be honest about. What do you call them? A hostel, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing, isn't it?
It blows my mind that they have to pay for a hostel.
It's a disgrace, yeah. But yeah, at the same time, if that's what they're telling you,
Yeah.
and you have a few bob on you, of course, you're going to give to them.
Yeah, and there's
Like here, I'll give you a small idea, right?
Go on.
Here one time, right, I was parked outside the shop, yeah? But it was only myself and my young lad, say, the youngest lad, and he went into the shop. But there was this young lad sitting outside the shop, basically. So I said to my young lad, I said, bring him out something there, so maybe get whatever, drink or whatever you could afford in there, right? Maybe, could be anything to eat, like, you know what I mean? So I told him, I said, yeah, make sure you get him something anyway, I said. So he came out anyway, but while he was in the shop, this car, say, pulls in beside him, yeah? Beside the young lad now that was, say, literally begging outside the shop. And the woman gets out and she gave him a bag with some clothes in it. And then she took a coat out and she actually put the coat on him, helped him to put it on and all. So I was looking at this, I said, we don't see this like every day, you know what I mean? So she gave him a bit of a hug anyway, and there was actually a man and a woman in the car. So they went on about their business. So I couldn't help it, I gave him a beep, didn't I? And I called him over. I was only in the car on my own, right? Because it was only my young lad who was with me, but he was in the shop. So I said, how's things? I said, who's that lady? He said, I gave you the jacket there. I said, did you know her? Yeah, I knew her, he said. He said, she was my ma's, as he called her, his ma. She was my ma's friend. Oh, so I know. So I was just wondering, because I don't see that happening basically every day, you know what I mean? But I said to him anyway, I said, you're hungry? I am, he said. So would you like a bit of food in McDonald's? I said to him, yeah, I'd like a burger, he said. So I'll tell you what, I said, walk over there, I said. Now, McDonald's only just across the road. You can see it across less than a minute's walk, basically, looking across it. I said, walk over there, I said, I'll be over there in a couple of minutes. I said, I'm waiting for the young lad to come out of the shop. So the young lad came out and he brought him out drinks and all biscuits and bars and stuff, right? So he was, the other lad now, the homeless lad, as you call him. Well, I didn't know he was homeless at this stage. I knew he was begging, all right. So he walks across to McDonald's, yeah?
Yeah.
And it was in the evening time, we were only 8 o'clock, I say. So I walks into McDonald's anyway, myself and my own lad as well, yeah? And I said to him, I said, pick whatever food you want there. And he just ordered a burger. I said, do you not want anything else? No, I'm happy with this, he said. So I told the girl inside the counter, I said, give him a burger, and some chips, I said, and a drink with that as well. I said, whatever he wants with it. I said, there. That was okay. So I paid for it, and he couldn't thank me enough.
Lovely.
But what I didn't know was, he said to me, he said, thanks very much for this, he said. He said, now, he said, I can wait here, he said, till 11 o'clock. So what
in McDonald's?
This is what he said to me, yeah?
Oh, lovely, okay.
So, what do you mean, I said? He said, I'm actually homeless, he said. So I said, where do you... Now, I knew he was begging, I didn't know he was homeless. So where do you sleep then? He said, I go inside the wall, he said, in Santry Park, basically. He said, I climb across the wall in there, he said. And I have a tent in there, he said. So I said to him, I said, what caused you to be homeless? Are you only young? He said, my mother died, he said. And he said, that was her friend, he said, that gave me the coat back there. But he said, so right, I said, how come, what was that making on the streets? He said, the council came around, he said, and they were taking back the house. And it was only me and my sister, he said. But they gave us 3 weeks, he said, in the house. Now, he said his sister was only like 13 or 14, only a baby. But he said, so what I done, he said, I phoned up the social services to take her, he said. Because he said, I knew I was going to be homeless within 3 weeks on the streets. And he said, I wouldn't be able to take care of her, he said.
Even though, was he living with the ma?
No, watch this, the mother died.
Yeah.
Him and the little girl, brother and sister and the mother, happy family in their little home. Poor mother died. And then they got letters in saying that they're only allowed to have the house for 3 more weeks.
What age is he?
He was, be honest, I say maybe around 18, 19 years of age.
Okay. So he was an adult?
He was, but he came across as a very smart little fella in the end.
Yeah.
So he said, I phoned up the social services and I asked them to take my sister, he said, because I knew I wouldn't be able to take care of her, he said. He said, I knew I was going to be on the streets, he said.
So begs the question.
Within 3 weeks.
Why didn't they give him the house?
I don't know. Maybe he wasn't working, he couldn't keep the rent going or something like that. I haven't got a clue.
But if he wasn't working, sorry for poking holes in your story, but he'd be on the dole.
But maybe the mother could pay the rent, you see. But chances are it was probably a 3-bedroom house. And they weren't going to let a young boy and girl stay in a 3-bedroom house, were they?
Right.
Now, they could have given him somewhere else, but he was thinking fast until he was thinking smart. Do you know what I mean? It was sad that he had to do it. But the moral of the story was, it's not about the food, not about bringing him to McDonald's. It was about the little story that he had to tell behind it all and the reason why he was homeless.
And the fact that he could stay in McDonald's till 11 o'clock.
And he could stay. It was like a home to him alone.
Yeah.
That he could stay. He was delighted that he could stay there till 11 o'clock and then jump in behind the wall and get his sleep there. So that was sad, wasn't it?
It's some crack, isn't it, with the...
So that's the reality. What I'm saying is talk about looking at people and judging people and not knowing if they're hungry or homeless or one thing or another. And yet, they're being ignored too much.
Yeah, I mean,
Don't get me wrong.
By who?
No, this one I'm getting at. I said, don't get me wrong when I say ignored by... I'm not talking about being ignored by public because everyone has their own life to live at the end of the day. But I think the government and the council should be able to do something about it.
I don't think that they have... I don't know if they don't have the brains or they just don't give a rat's.
I think they don't give a damn.
They have the brains and the connections and the networks to keep their own game going. But I think they just don't give a rat's, and that they expect people to be able to pull themselves up out of any situation. There's so many, there's thousands of stories of families that have, somebody had passed away or there was a breakup and they had to give the house back to Dublin City Council, and people are forced out onto the streets, or they're given ultimatums by, different councils around the country. And I just think there's not much humanity in it. Like we were talking about having human contact and having that kind of humanity. There's not much humanity in it. It's very much, you're just a number on a page and we don't care about the story behind it.
That's right.
Now, I'm not saying that, organisations like Dublin City Council never in their history, have been concerned about people's stories or, individual cases. But it looks like from the outside that you're just numbers and boxes. You don't qualify for this house because of A, B, C and D. We don't really care about the rest of the details. Touch on. And you see it around this city. Hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of houses lying empty and derelict, owned by Dublin City Council.
And blocked up, closed up.
Are blocked up. And we all know with the right thinking and the right action, within 5 or 6 months, you could easily get rid of all the rough sleepers, for example, into those houses. You could start then to chip away at the bigger numbers, whatever it is in this state at the moment. If it's 10,000 or 50,000 homeless people, officially it's 10,000, but I'm sure those figures only count, specific people who are in specific hostels. They don't count other people who are sleeping in cars, who are
that's right. They know how many people are in our, like, say, let's say homeless in hostels, homeless in hotels.
Yeah.
They know how many people are in there because they're keeping count of all of that.
Well, they're the ones that they're the cash they're paying for.
They're paying them, but it's easy for them to pay it because it means then it's a problem out of their hands. So the money side of it is solving the problem for the council. The council's basically that's over these things, right? But are they completely and totally, utterly blind to the people lying on the streets? Imagine coming outside a big council office and seeing someone sleeping at the door of it.
Right, so
I'm sure it's happened 1,000 times.
This begs the question, right? Because this is episode 10. We've kind of given ourselves 10 episodes, me and you, just me and you, with nobody else on, just to get used to each other, talking about stuff, and we've kind of paced ourselves and we've said, right, we're going to slowly get into this podcast thing and slowly have conversations and explore different stories. So why for you, in episode 10 of this podcast between a traveller and a countryman, do you want to talk about this? Why is this the thing that is coming up for you?
Homelessness, hunger,
Yeah.
people on the streets.
Yeah.
Because it's a reality.
But there's loads of realities. Why are you focusing on this reality?
This is a serious reality that we're literally tripping across. Do you understand? And it's very effective also.
What do you mean it's very effective?
It's very effective because the people that are living on the streets, back to the one thing, hungry, homeless, cold, maybe, as you said, lonely, and literally anything that can go wrong is wrong for them when they're lying on the street.
Yeah.
And then talk about lonely, not being wanted even.
So what do you mean it's very effective?
Not being wanted and not being even counted in by society. I think that takes a big effect on society itself.
Okay.
Being honest about.
So, why are you interested in that? Why does that?
I'm interested in it because I think it's very, very sad. That's where my interest is.
One thing that's going on, that's flashing in my head, is that's very similar to how your community, the travelling people, are treated.
Yes, it is, but also that's even a lower level. So it makes you. How would you say? You ever heard you say it makes you beg the question? Yeah.
Yeah.
That if they don't care about people literally lying on the streets,
dying on the streets,
and they're actually passing up and down by them every single day. Come here, these government officials and these council, as you call them, these council, say Dublin City Council and Fingal Council, whatever councils we have, right? They're not sleeping in their offices all day. They're surely coming out for a cup of coffee or a bit of lunch, and they're passing up and down by these people every day on the streets. The people are literally knocked out on the streets cold with either hunger or thirst or cold, and again, loneliness. So that is a big effect. There's no mistake about that. And anybody that couldn't see that and be blind to that, and I'm not saying people are blind to it, what I'm saying is you can pretend to be blind to it, and you turn your head, then there's something actually unhuman about yourself. That's the way I see it. If I was to pass by a person on the street knowing that they were starving with the hunger, and I had a few bob in my pocket, yeah, and I couldn't at least walk into a shop and buy them a sandwich, then there'd be nothing human.
But you could buy them all the sandwiches in the world. It's not going to change the circumstance.
No, it would change one. It wouldn't change anything, but it would help. It would take a little bit of hunger away, wouldn't it? It would help one little thing. You see.
So we feed them because they are getting fed.
I'm not saying it's important for me just to walk into a shop. What I'm saying is I'm talking about the human side of it. Do you understand? So if we have all these guys that has power walking out of big offices with their fancy suits and they're literally passed up and down by this, can they not look at these people and just say, look, if it wasn't for the grace of God, that might have been me instead of him.
And if it wasn't for the grace of God, go I. Is that the phrase?
It might have been me instead of him.
Yeah. So you see that, and you're at the bringing up a few different words there. One is grace and one is God, okay?
Yeah.
And so I remember listening to stories about Jesus, right, when I was a young fella. And there was the beggar man then, there was the homeless man then, and it's still there now. And no matter, but no matter
2,000 years after,
no matter how many sandwiches we give them, they're still going to be there.
We're not talking about sandwiches. Sandwich is not the issue here. We're not talking about a sandwich. We're just using that as a point here. We're trying to say is reach out the people that can do it, let them reach out to help the people that need the help.
But they haven't been doing it for 2,000 years.
That's where the problem is. That's why the problem is still here. So if they can only, let's say, put the foot on the door there and or up the ladder and make the first step. Yeah, try.
So do you think it's just the people in power that are responsible for it, or is it all of us?
I'm not saying the people in power are taking these people out of homes and throwing them on the streets.
Well, in some cases they are.
Right, but what I'm saying is it's actually misfortunate that there is so many people lying on the streets that genuinely cannot help themselves. They're there, they're not there by choice, and they can say all they want about, look, they chose this, they chose that, they chose the other. They didn't. Would you choose to be in a nice cosy house or a nice cosy apartment, with your electricity, your hot water and your showers and your food on your table? Or would you choose to be lying on the streets, starving of hunger, freezing cold, no, not even a blanket to cover you, only a cardboard box?
So where's the argument, get up and help yourself?
The thing about it is they might not be able to help themselves because they don't have the mental state of mind is not in them anymore to get up and help themselves. They don't have the strength, the mental strength, to actually get up and help themselves.
So what
they need someone to catch their hands and give them that lift, bring them up.
But there's loads of, let's say, homelessness in Dublin. There's loads of services that do stuff. You know, McFerry's and
no, there is good
Focus
people.
Ireland,
yes, that's right. There's lots of good people.
The numbers are only getting bigger.
Yes, but that's where we need more help.
But the more help and
so
the more
God bless Peter
fundraising they
McFerry
do,
and all the people that are helping them. They are without a doubt doing great work.
But
there's no mistake
in the 30 or 40 years that they've all been in existence.
Like I know.
In the 30 or 40 years that they've all been in existence,
yes.
Housing
still happening.
has only got, it's not still happening, it's got 10, 20 times worse.
It has, because why? Because the likes of, as you said, Father Peter, I actually met him last week, Father Peter McFerry, right? Him and all the St. Teresa Foundation in Meath Street, the little, what do you call it, penny dinners, is it?
Yeah.
Now, they're great, but they can't, you ever heard the song, Feed the World?
Yeah.
Yeah? They can't feed the world. They're feeding what they can feed. They're looking after the people. They only have a certain amount of power and strength also, and resources to help the people that they can. So I'm sure they're giving out their last dish to them people, if you want. Do you understand? Like I said to you earlier on, if you can only feed one person, it's better than feeding none at all. So they are looking after everybody that they can in their power, the power they have. So I'm sure if they had the power to double that, they probably would do the same also. So therefore, they need more help, more support to help these people again. So if it's for instance, right, there's 1,000 people on the street, and they can only look after 500 people, which is a serious amount of people. We're just using that as an example, right? Then it means that they need more support from the government to look after that other 500 people.
Yes, so...
Or it is going to still get worse and worse and worse and worse after that.
What do you mean by look after them?
Feed them, basically, for starters. If they can put them into homes, when I say homes, like give them somewhere to live, basically. Another word, support them in whatever way they need support, like food, clothes, homes.
Well, I know, they won't survive long without water. They won't survive long without food. But the thing that will actually help them get out of that cycle of, let's say it's rough sleeping, or let's say it's, being on the streets of the capital city. The thing that helps them get out of that, beyond all the food and the water in the world and all the jackets and all the gloves and all the hats and all the conversations and all the love, the number one thing that they really, really can thrive with is a home.
A roof over their heads.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's not about sandwiches and hot dinners and da.
No, it's not, but it's part of it.
It is. I think it's a
part of it.
I think it's a very important but small part, because what would change it all, if you gave them 100 hot dinners in 100 days in a row, it's not going to change much for them. But if you gave them one house, one apartment, and their own key, they can close the door, they can put their head in the pillow, and they can sleep. That's a game changer.
And supposing then that they got the thought to help somebody else, and that somebody else tries to help somebody else, and the whole thing builds up from one person helping another to another to another, eventually the whole situation would be come to an end.
Yeah, and like I don't think that we don't want to help people. I just think that we're too caught up in our own stuff. We're too caught up in our own lives. We have our own pressures, our own jobs, our own families, and our own this and that. And one of the reasons we have a council and we have a government is because we pay taxes into all of that system, and we expect our taxes to do basic things like hospitals, education, and housing. But what we're not doing in this country is putting our taxes. What the government is not doing is putting those taxes into those basic things. That money that we're all paying, that working people are paying, all those taxes, they're not going into having housing for all. They're going into having jobs for the boys and brown envelopes and cliques and gangster politicians and politicians that own hotels that are being paid money to house homeless people in those hotels. So there's a bigger game that sometimes we feel it's beyond us or we're powerless in it.
I think money can fix a lot of them problems, and if they say if money can fix it, then it shouldn't be a problem.
But there's no lack of money in this country.
That's what I'm trying to say. If money can fix the problem, and while money can fix it, it means there shouldn't be a problem.
But yet still the problem persists, and it's
that was
getting
like
worse.
I was at a meeting one time with the council, and they said across the table, they said like we were 2 hours at a meeting with them, yeah, and we were going on back and forth, and one of the members of the council, Dublin City Council, said, but money is not a problem. So I said, if money is not a problem, why are we sitting here at this table contradicting and disputing, even having a meeting here in the first place? I said, because money is the root of the problem, I said the money basically that you got for specifically for travellers' accommodation, basically, if you like, right? So, therefore, put their hands in their pockets and money again, take out their monies and let it not be a problem. Because
so I think you're getting to the root of the thing here, right? They don't see travellers, yeah. They don't see homeless, vulnerable people, women with kids sleeping in their cars. Not that they don't see them; they choose not to acknowledge them.
Bear in mind, we're not actually even talking about travellers here.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
Because the majority of the people we're talking about, and I'm talking about the big end majority, are actually settled people that's on the streets.
And what I find
now,
interesting...
don't get me wrong, there is a few travellers, I know that for sure, but without a doubt, if there's 1,000 people in here, if there's 500 people sleeping on the streets, I can guarantee you that 450 of them people are
90% of them. And what's happening is that more and more, and I think that this is possibly where it could change in this country, is that more and more of those people are working people, are middle class people, where they're being like we're just about to go into, if we can believe the news and the reports, you know, another recession with food poverty and fuel poverty and all this type of stuff.
Right. And
the reason we're hearing about that is because more and more and more middle class people are being affected by that. And I think it's possibly a good thing, because it could force a change in this country where we no longer just see the poor working class person or the traveller or the smelly rough sleeper, that it's actually affecting the RTE listener. You know what I mean? That portion of Ireland that has always considered themselves safe.
Yeah.
They're no longer safe. Their contracts aren't safe. Their jobs aren't safe. Their houses aren't safe. Their mortgages aren't safe. They're probably getting kicked out of their house and they're forced to pay rent. That's ridiculous. And they're kind of looking around going, I thought we lived in this amazing country that protected you if you paid your taxes, that you could get housing and education and good roads and hospitals. But we're realising that that's just all a bullshit game.
No, I tell you what now, at this present moment, it's more about neglect than protect. Let's be honest about. They're not protected, they're neglected. That's what they are. Now, I want to ask you a question also, and I'm not comparing one. Look, I'm going to ask you a question about a dog, right? I'm not comparing dogs with human beings, okay?
Yeah.
If how many stray dogs would you see down around the streets of Dublin? Straight up.
Very rare.
Would you ever see one?
Very rare.
If you went into Dublin City 10 times, say, would you see a dog at least once? No.
You'll probably see one dog in 10 times.
If you see them.
Yeah.
Right. Why do we have no stray dogs around Dublin?
Go on, I feel a joke coming on here.
No, it's not
I don't
a joke.
know. Go on.
Because if there was a stray dog around Dublin, the RSPCA would be called straight away.
Okay, yeah.
That dog would be lifted and brought into care and fed and washed and looked after and homed. Am I right?
I would hope that you're right, but I have heard stories of.
But I think I'm right.
Yeah, I have heard stories of
Right.
people keeping kennels and treating dogs brutally. But I get
No,
your point.
I know, but we're not going there. I'm not. This is only a different thing we're talking about here.
That the RSPCA would come in,
They would,
or the
yeah.
OSPCA or whatever it is, come in,
Without
take the
doubt.
dog, feed them.
And rightly so, because animals are
shelter,
animals, you have to
water,
look after
food.
them. Now, why can they not do these things with the people who are sleeping on the streets?
Because I
Send-
think part of it is we don't judge dogs and we're not thinking that dog is going to go off and buy
No,
drugs
but are
or
we
drink.
saying, you're right about that. Are we saying that we're going to look after a dog better that's on the street than a human being? Is that what they're actually saying? It's silent. I know it's done in silence, but it's probably the truth.
Yeah, I totally,
Now, that's
get,
no
I totally get your
disrespect.
point.
Don't get me
if
wrong.
you've seen somebody kicking the shite out of a rough sleeper or a street sleeper on the streets versus somebody kicking the shite out of a dog,
Yeah.
I think there'd be more reaction to the dog.
Yeah, as I said, dogs, of course, you have to respect dogs. Everyone loves dogs, basically. And rightly so, look after the dogs, yes. But you don't see the dogs wandering the streets, because if you do, they're put into a van, they're brought off, they're washed, looked after, fed, you name it, and homed, where they won't do it with human beings. There's a human being lying in the street there. Why not send a van out there with a couple of lads, talk to them, try and make sense to them, explain to them, look, we have a place to bring you, you get some food, you get this place to sleep, and all that sort of stuff.
So here's
And if
here's
they've
one
done that step by step,
yeah.
eventually there'll be no people living on the streets.
So
is very, very
here's
sad.
here's why our equivalent of that would be hostels, putting people in hostels. Yeah, like a dog sanctuary is the equivalent would be put a person in a hostel.
Yeah, but the hostels, they know that hostels are not solving the problem.
Okay, so one of the reasons the hostels I feel aren't solving the problems is because they're privatised. They're run by these private companies who want to make money and save money,
Yeah.
and have no overheads but making loads of profit.
Yes.
And they're running a bare bones operation, and they're treating people worse than animals in some situations.
Right.
Like I know a fella recently, he's 50 years of age, and he told me he was homeless, and I advised him to register as homeless and go into the hostels. And he was shiting himself to go into the hostels.
He was afraid to go into it.
He was really petrified to go in because of the stories that he heard. And I said, look, the way the game is now, you kind of have to go into a hostel. He went into a hostel, and I met him there the other day, and it was like he was traumatized. It was like he had culture shock or something like that, or he had PTSD from a war. He was gaunt, he was grey, he was tired. He didn't look like he got sleep at all. And this is from being in a hostel, like. And he said, being in these hostels was turning him angry and racist and all this type of stuff, because he was seeing that him as a man who grew up here, born here, paid taxes here, was just treated like a number.
But didn't exist here.
Didn't exist.
In their eyes.
He basically was just a number on a sheet. Yeah. Number 11, okay, there's a bed for you. In that room there, I don't care who you're in there with.
Something you see in films that was made 150 years ago.
Yeah. Something like Oliver Twist.
I remember back about, it was 2004, 2005, right? You might remember when a load of Romanians influxed into Ireland, yeah?
Yeah.
And they were all, the big M50 roundabout there, yeah?
Here at Ballymun.
In Ballymun here, yeah.
Yeah.
They were all living, say, around that roundabout. There was a lot of them there.
I heard a story of that lads would arrive into the airport, and they'd go out to the taxi man, and they'd go, Ballymun roundabout. That's my Romanian accent. Ballymun, it's the only words of English they had. Somebody must have texted back and went, here's what you say when you get to Dublin Airport. Yeah. Ballymun roundabout.
And that was their home.
Yeah.
But it was their home.
So what Martin is describing is there's a big roundabout at the junction of
exit 4, yeah.
Yeah, Ballymun, exit 4, Ballymun and the M50. Huge big roundabout.
And I'm sure people remember this.
And there's slopes on it and a bit of space where you could...
There's a lot of bushes there, basically, like a shelter thing.
So these people had basically set up a camp in there.
Yeah, they made
out of pallets, like.
Yeah.
And tarpaulin.
Well, travellers done it 30 years ago, 35 years ago, so they probably got a few tips from that. Anyway, back in 2004, 2005...
Yeah.
That's when they all sort of, as I said, influxed into Ireland, right? But a lot of them made camp there at that roundabout, yeah? They used to come out in on the streets. No, the traffic lights would be down further, down towards the Ballymun Road. And they stand there and, of course, the hands were out for a couple of bob. And you'd always give them an euro or two if you had it. But so what I done one time then, I went down to, say, the big supermarket shop there, yeah? And there was all sleeping bags and tents and stuff like that there. So I went in and I filled up two trolleys of it. They were actually Romanians, but they were like genuinely poor without a doubt.
Yeah.
I don't know what their financial status is now. Probably a lot better, I don't know. But anyway, so then I paid like say 400 for a load of sleeping bags for them.
You did?
Yeah.
Is this out of your own pocket?
Yeah, I could just about afford it, but they were worse off than I was, so I thought, no man, they need a little bit of help, like. Now, the moral of the story is when I get to the end of it, yeah?
Yeah.
So what I done was then I brought one or two of the young lads in with me, and we topped up like three or four trolleys of food, basically. So we got that into all separate bags for them, yeah? And then I gave them a few bob at the same time, yeah? To be honest with you, I could genuinely barely afford it, like. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So it goes up anyway, and we pulled up on the footpath beside the fence. There's like a railings going around that there.
Mm-hmm.
And next, they all came out. So I passed them all in I didn't go inside the fence now, I waited outside the fence.
Yeah.
And I passed them all in the bags of food, and the sleeping bags and stuff. So while I was just handing all that stuff into them, I gave some of them a few bob as well, yeah? Just something I felt like doing, you know what I mean? I felt good about. So next the guards pulled in behind me, didn't they?
Right.
And asked, what were we doing? So I told them, I said, look, I said, I'm giving them sleeping bags I bought down there in the store in Aldi's down there. And I said, a bit of food, I said, is what they need, like that there. So he said to me, look, he said, you can't do that.
There's rules in this country.
Yeah. But I said, why can I not do that? Well, he said, you're only going to be keeping them here. Well, I said, look, I said, that won't be my problem, I said.
Yeah, they are here.
I said, they are here now, I said. And I said, I'm out of here too, I said. But I said, look, I felt like they need to give them a bit of food, I said, and a few sleeping bags. So I'm sure that's what they need most of all right now this minute, I said. Probably need homes or whatever, I said, but look, I said, I can't.
Don't be encouraging them to stay here.
I said, I can't, yeah. I can't do anything about that. But I said, look, I said, you won't see me up here anymore anyway. I said, look, I'm out of here. But he said to me also, he said, it's very, very dangerous, he said. He said, few people have stopped here, he said, and they're passing food to them, he said. And what's happened is, he said, they're all running out. It's sort of long grabbing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They're all
long grabbing,
yeah. They all want to get what they can, kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know
yeah. Give me that quick.
As quick as they can, you know what I mean? So he said, if they run out in that road there, he said they could get knocked down with a car. So he was right. He made a good point, like.
Yeah.
So I said, look, I said, you won't have to worry about that now no more. For me, I said, you won't have to worry about it, I said, because I just done now what I felt like I needed to do, I said. But I said, I won't be coming back up here anymore, I said, cheerio. I said,
because of what he said?
No, I didn't. Look, I wouldn't be able to do something like that every day or even every week anyway.
You'd
I
be
spent
broke.
Honestly, I spent about, say, 8 and maybe 900 euros on them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And does it all come from you, or is it a few
From me,
years?
yes. It was my life savings.
No.
And I poured it into them.
It wasn't your life savings, was it?
But anyway, look, I don't know what I could do for them.
How many of them was there?
Oh, there was about, I'd say there could be at the time,
Yeah.
there could be maybe 16 or 17, maybe up to 20 of them, I'd say.
Men, women, children.
There was men, women, and children. But sure, it was the children that you'd mostly pity, like. You know
And
what I
what
mean?
brought you to do that?
Because that was a road I would always use.
Yeah.
And you'd see them walking from there down to the Ballymun garage, basically, and back up along. So it just came to my attention just to do something.
No, I know it came to your attention, but why?
No, this is what I'm trying to say. It was how it came to my attention. Wasn't I in Aldi's store? I was looking for tools. I think it was a drill or something I was looking for. And I spotted all the sleeping bags. So I said, look at me. I said, them people up there would like some of them sleeping bags, basically. You know what I mean? Chances are they probably couldn't afford them, you know what I'm saying? So I went home anyway, and I came back down anyway in the van, and we just loaded the van up with sleeping bags.
No, you're not getting to the why. Why bother? What are you doing? Why are you spending your own money on them?
This is what I was getting at. Ask me why. Because chances are they were hungry. They were definitely homeless. They might have had nowhere to sleep, only under the few trees that was there, basically around that roundabout. They were homeless. They were hungry. They were cold. I can't say they were lonely because there was a good few in there together, you see.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But anyway, they were overexcited to see, basically, get them a few bits and pieces. Like, they were delighted to get them a few bits.
Lovely.
But it done me good also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt good about doing something simple like that. I thought it was very nice to see. It's not all about helping ourselves every time. You know what I mean? You can actually feel goodness of trying to help somebody else also. Do you know? Now, I don't know if you feel that way or if everybody feels that way, but I felt that way.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing.
So when I was finished, I felt like I had a good deed done, didn't I?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing when you do
No,
something.
I didn't get no Blue Peter badge or a tap in the background because I wasn't looking for that.
No, but I think the feeling is that I think you feel more connected to humanity when you do something like that. And, you know, sometimes you could question your motives. Oh, why am I doing this? And why am I helping these people? And I think for me, it's, well, you're connecting to your humanity. You're doing something that makes other people feel human, and that has a knock-on effect that makes you feel human as well.
Yeah, it does. And also you might also do these little things because thanks be to God, you feel like I felt more fortunate than what they did, if you know what I'm saying. So that also made me feel good as well.
And you've obviously had experience.
Someone that was lesser.
You've obviously had experience or known through the history of traveller people what it must be like to be literally living on the side of the road.
Well, we done a podcast here a few weeks ago about this. Well, it was actually my mother and say my relatives and that, where living was where they had to knock on people's doors and ask for this and beg for this and beg for that, and that was the reality of it. So maybe that was a bit of motivation. I'm not sure. Look, if someone needs a bit of help and you can help them without putting yourself into any kind of danger, I don't think there's any harm in trying to help a little bit. I think it's actually a good thing to do, and I think it's what we're meant to do as human beings. Help each other out a little bit, no matter how little it is, because every little bit helps anyway. Sometimes that little can mean a lot. It might be a little to you, but it might be a lot to somebody else.
What has been going on in my head for the last couple of weeks while we're recording this is why are we recording it? Why are we having these conversations? Is it just to have a bit of crack? Is it just to talk to each other? Or is there something bigger, or a reason or a purpose for doing these
Let's
conversations?
hope there might be. But you said to me when we were starting this off, you said to me it's very, very rarely that you get a traveller man and a countryman having conversations on a podcast.
It's very rare.
You see?
It's very rare. It's very rare that a traveller man talks. Like, not like talks, has conversations, chats to people and so on, but talks openly and honestly as much as you can as a traveller man.
Yeah, but there's only one thing that I'm missing here, Dean, as a traveller man. we can't have the campfire in this building here.
Well, we could record around the campfire. We can record up in St. Margaret's.
If we
can record.
if
We can
had
record
the
with members of your family.
If we had the campfire here now and the old kettle around, that would definitely make me feel old-fashioned, wouldn't it?
If we had your mammy here, we could. The three of us could have a talk. We talk the head off a hammer.
Who knows? Shall we get her talking? We never get her to show up. I'm telling you.
No, wouldn't that be a show?
And then if you contradict her, she'll be looking for a fight.
So what I'm interested in is beyond me and you having a conversation, which I think is a great thing, and I think people are getting an insight into definitely into the traveller way of life, the traveller culture through you, but you're also helping me explore what the things we have as humans in common beyond, whether I'm an Irishman or you're an Irishman or you're a traveller or whatever. Beyond that, we all, and everybody listen to this, we're all human. I think the less that we see each other as rich, poor, black, white, gay, homeless, and we just see each other as human.
We don't have to be rich to help somebody else out. That's one thing that I don't think anybody has to be.
So the point I was making was, regardless of how much you have or how little you have, we're all human.
This is what I was trying to say earlier on.
Regardless of if you're homeless or Romanian or Irish or black or Jewish, we're all human.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say earlier on when you cut me off about 3 times, yeah?
No problem. It's a pleasure.
Right. You were saying about why would you do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're actually showing your human side, basically, and also you're dealing with another human also. You're literally dealing with yourself in a sense, but human being basically, and the human side of it, but they're just a little bit worse off than what you are.
What do you mean?
What I was talking about earlier on when you asked me about, you asked me in different words, could I afford to?
Oh yeah.
No, I'm not saying I could afford it. One might say, if you couldn't afford it, how'd you do it? Just because you do it doesn't mean you can actually afford it. You do it from the goodness of your heart, for starters. If you decide not to do it, then that's still your own choice whether you can afford it or not, if it makes any sense.
Yeah, so the question I'm asking is more related to this podcast and these conversations that we're having. Beyond me and you having conversations about various topics, or maybe even having guests on after episode 10 and inviting different people in, I think there's something bigger that we can offer to people. And I think as a traveller man, you talking here with me, you can have conversations, or you can say things, or we can tease things out, or explore things that don't get explored in this country between travellers and certain people.
Yeah, that's right.
Or between travellers and travellers.
I agree with that, but the thing about it is, I think I said this before, there's things that travellers will talk about, and there's things that travellers won't talk about. And as a traveller man, yes, there's things I won't talk about. Because it'd be very embarrassing for me to talk about certain things.
Yeah.
Not only would I be embarrassing myself, I'd probably be embarrassing people around me as well. Like they'd be going, so what's wrong with this fella? Is he cracking up or something? Or is he gone mad or what?
What do you mean?
Well, I can tell you now that I'm not gone mad, for starters. I'm not cracking up.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's certain explorations there that I probably wouldn't even venture into.
I think given time, I would hope that you will. I think that you're growing in confidence and courage.
Maybe in 20 years' time, I won't be...
I think in 20 podcasts time.
I'm thinking 20 years' time, I won't be as shy as I am now.
Is it shyness, you think?
I don't know. Sometimes you're trying to say, are you ashamed, or are you... I don't know if it's shame or are you embarrassed. It's the same word, it is. Similar, isn't it?
Similar, yeah.
So you might say, yes, I do be embarrassed to talk about certain things.
Are you embarrassed or concerned about what people think about you doing this podcast?
Yes, I am concerned about what people think about me also.
And
there's a lot of people that I don't care what they think about me.
Yeah.
Considering that I'm not doing anything wrong, if you know what I'm saying. But if I'm doing something right, and people still want to, let's say, talk about me or bad about me for one reason or another, well, then that's their problem. That's not my problem.
So why are you concerned about
the problem lies within them. I'd be concerned about if I was doing something, if I was saying something wrong, and they talk, then I'd know I gave them reason to talk.
Yeah, but you're careful with what you
Go on,
say.
Dean, ask me all the tricky questions. You might as well get it out.
We'll get it all out now then. You're careful with what you say. So
Well, no, I'm trying to be careful what I say, yes.
But I think sometimes you're too careful in this because you don't want to offend anybody.
I realise that, yeah.
You don't want to offend anybody. What I'm saying is, no matter
But
what...
for me, that's a lifetime motto, though.
No matter what you say, you could talk about any topic. We could talk about any topic here. And I guarantee you, somebody somewhere will be offended by it.
It's possible.
But not even that it's possible. It's a guaranteed fact.
Yeah,
no matter what we say and how much we explore stuff, somebody somewhere will be offended by it.
For instance, if I said something on this podcast now tonight, just say it this evening, yeah?
Yeah.
And somebody was offended by it. Well, I would like the opportunity to explain that, look, it wasn't like this or it wasn't like that. And if you're offended, I apologise. If I'm, say, talking and I think I'm talking a bit of sense, and that person still gets, whoever it might be, gets offended, well, then I think that's through their own ignorance then. So I would have no need to apologise.
And what I'm saying is, I think you're talking sense most of the time. Most of what you say...
No, you mean to say senseless?
No, I think you're talking sense most of the time.
Oh, sorry.
I don't think words come out of your mouth where it's just rubbish or you're just talking to fill the space.
I mean, you should see me when... No, but you should see me when I'm not being careful. I talk all the rubbish anyway.
Do you?
Yeah.
So why do you come on here and be
No, I'll
careful
tell you
then?
what. I think there's a part of my life now, being careful about what I say and what I don't say. Now, that's not making me a saint or perfect. I can tell you that for sure. I sometimes make a mess of myself too with stupid words. But I do know one thing for sure. No matter who I'm around, I'll always try to maybe... Apart from slagging and jibing and messing and stuff like that, being sarcastic, I do a lot of that, right? I'll always try to sort of be respectful and kind. That is one of my main mottos in life.
And what I'm saying is, no matter how
It's to treat people how you'd like to be treated. You can't, as I said again, we're not perfect here, probably never will be. We won't always get it right, okay? We all make mistakes, yeah? Look at me ears, look at my ears, red and black and blue sometimes. All the clatters. So how could I be right? Yeah, but I think it's good to actually at least try. We're not going to get it right, but try to get it right. And no matter who you're around, whoever it is might be, treat them with respect if you can.
But my point is, no matter how much careful or respectful or you are,
Yes.
I guarantee you,
Yeah.
no matter what you say and how respectful you are,
Yeah.
somebody's going to get offended.
You're right about that. 'Cause I'll tell
And
you why.
I think that's none of our business.
No, I'll tell you why you're right about that. Because I've had lots of friends through the years, still have lots of friends, lots of good friends who have respect for me and I have respect for them the same way. But then there was that odd one or two who I genuinely thought was nice people and was good friends of mine. And yet happened to be bad mouthing me. But I obviously hear things back, like, you know what I mean? Through the years, like, you know what I mean? And I just overlook it. I don't hold, I try not to hold grudges. I try to still, even if I say for instance, right, Dean's a buddy of mine and I hear Dean said such a thing and Dean said this and Dean said that, I'd still talk to you next day or the day after or a month after or a year after when I see you. I wouldn't hold that against you, basically, because the reason is I like to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
We all make mistakes. I'm not perfect either, and I'm definitely not perfect. And there's times when I am liable to make a speech or a comment about somebody and realising, I shouldn't have said that, it's not fair because that is not the truth, or maybe I shouldn't have said it for one reason or another. Or I'm sort of looking in my own mind, I'm sorry for saying that now because that's not a kind thing to say about somebody.
Yeah.
No, them kind of things. I know it's all foolish, but there's still things that we all can slip up on sometimes without realising it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did it ever happen? Did you ever make a silly comment about somebody and
I
you
made
realise,
one recently
I shouldn't have said that.
to people that I kind of thought I knew, but I don't know, and I made a comment and it was taken up entirely the wrong way, and I got bollocking over it. I got told, look, what you said there was totally inappropriate. Now, what was coming out of my mouth at the time, the intention wasn't to be appropriate. And what I'm saying is, no matter what you say or what your intention is or how careful you are or how quick lipped you are or how carefree you are or what you say, somebody somewhere will always be offended by you. And
they're called critics.
yeah, but just not even critics, but just
But it's
just human nature.
Isn't it?
You cannot control how people pick you up or hear you or hear the words or the message that you're saying. It's beyond their control. Once it leaves your lips, it's like an artist painting a picture. Once the oil goes on to the canvas, it's none of his business anymore.
No.
And he cannot control how people see it.
Well, there's one thing for sure that we can't stop people from talking. Let's put it that way. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, of course it does, because they're here. A person could be the far side of the world talking about you. Can you stop that person from talking if they're the far side of the world?
Absolutely not, and it's none of our business.
No, that's right, exactly.
It's none of it. So what I'm saying is we should feel free to say the things that we feel compelled to say, regardless of whether or not somebody's offended or not. Because if we were to concern ourselves with everybody and what they thought about us all the time, we would be backed into a corner and say
but we
nothing.
still have to. I think, in my perspective anyway, I think we still have to respect people at the same time.
Yeah. But if we listen to what everybody said,
I can't just go on here and badmouth everybody all around me.
If we listen to
even
what
including my good
said,
friends,
we would be backed into a corner and we'd actually.
Yeah,
be saying
I understand
nothing.
that we do. Yeah, but that still doesn't say we don't need to be careful. We still need to be careful what we talk about and who we talk about and what we say about people. Because then that would sound like we're intentionally out there to hurt somebody or upset people. Yes. And I don't think that's a fair thing to do. So I think that gives me reason to say, yes, I do still need to be careful what I talk about.
Yeah.
You might see that because you're probably thick, you know what I mean?
No, I'm only half as thick as you. But I think that there's a balance to find between saying too much and just running your mouth and saying nothing. I think podcasts and exploring these last 10 episodes, we're finding what the balance is for me and you. Because I know that there's topics...
there can be a balance on things if we know what we're talking about for starters. I know
there's topics, Martin, that if I bring up, and you've done this during this thing, and I've done it as well.
Yes.
Like you've mentioned stuff to me, and we can't really bring that up in this topic, or in this conversation, or in this podcast. And I've said stuff to you, and I would see you physically being uncomfortable saying... Dean, I can't talk about that type of stuff.
It's not in a childish way, no. But the thing about it is, when we started off on these podcasts, I did say, look, there is things that I will talk about as a traveller man, and I said there's things that I won't talk about.
Yeah.
Now I said there's things I can't talk about.
Very good, yeah.
It's not like it's... I'm under a hidden contract from the traveller community here and like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that.
It sounds like they're going to my head here, but it's not.
That Martin Stokes better not tell the settled people all their secrets.
It's just that I have to show my respect to the traveller community also, to be honest about.
Yeah.
Because I don't want every Tom, Dick and Harry saying, gee, what's this fella going on about? He's making a show of us here. What? He doesn't even know what he's talking about.
He's talking rubbish.
The truth
or as
is,
you said, is he cracking up? Is he losing?
The truth is, probably half of it I don't know what I'm talking about. But at least I'm owning up to it.
But at least you're talking. You've had the courage, and I talked to you about courage a couple of weeks ago, when we were having a private conversation. You have the courage of using your voice for something, and I think you're starting to realise what that something is. Beyond having a friendly conversation with a settled fella or a countryman, you're realising that potentially there are difficult conversations that need to be had in Ireland or with travelling people or with settled people that me and Dean could possibly have. Because we know the situation in this country isn't perfect. And one of the reasons we do podcasts is to have a bit of crack, have a bit of banter, talk about bits and bobs, but also talk about the stuff that's difficult to talk about.
Yeah, sometimes things are difficult to talk about. But it depends what kind of knowledge you have about these things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or what sort of an insight you have to this kind of whatever the topic might be. Sometimes we could come up on a topic and I mightn't have a clue what I'm talking about.
But I think you're learning. And
if I don't, it means it's probably could be down to lack of education, lack of intelligence, or it could be down to have a lack of anything, being honest, in a sense where, look, I'm not aware of this or I'm not aware of that. I don't know much about that. So that's where in the next few podcasts, we're going to be talking about you and your culture and the countryman's culture and where the countryman came from, where he started off and all that sort of stuff.
And also having guests on. What type of guests would you be
interested in? Yeah, well, I think that'd be interesting, you know what I'm saying?
What type of guests would you be interested in having on?
I'd like maybe guests who'd I know basically everybody has a story to tell, okay?
Yeah.
I'd like somebody who would sort of tell a bit of their life story kind of thing. I don't know who we're going to be able to get on here. Yeah, I'd like to say maybe I'd mention all the guests that I could, but it all depends how far we can reach out there. You know what I'm saying? It does. To me, it doesn't make a difference if it's a traveller man or a settled man. Maybe a storyteller or a singer or film actor or something like that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Man, woman, child.
We'll probably talk Tom Cruise, will we?
Man, woman, child. Does it matter to you?
No, what I'm saying is there's no point having a child long as I wouldn't know what they're talking about.
I don't know.
No, I think you're going to be childish there, Dean. I'd say you'll have a bit of crack with, say, the lads, because...
Who's the lads now?
Any lads you want to bring on, anybody, huh?
Who would you like to bring on?
Jeff. I'd love to get Jeff on because I know Jeff can slag you to death. He's good. You can't handle him.
So Jeff is one of our listeners.
Jeff is one of the lads, yeah.
So the awkward question I'm having, and I've said this to you privately, is...
You're saying, Dean, I know what you're going to say.
Go on.
You said it before, didn't you?
Yeah.
Say it again, because I'm just giving you the freedom of saying it.
I'm going to give you the space to say it now.
Go on, I don't want to be wrong, so let me know.
Okay, I'm talking about having a woman on.
Yeah, go on, but you're talking about traveller woman, is that right?
A traveller woman, a settled woman,
right,
an older woman, a younger woman, any woman.
I did explain this before to you, and it's probably never going to happen, getting a young traveller woman on this show. I can guarantee you that. And I'm
a young settled woman?
100% certain of that.
What about a young settled woman?
Maybe sometime if we got... Do you remember one time you come around the site and you were talking to the older women? Remember, like my mother and the other old lady across the site as well?
Yeah.
Did you find that interesting, their sort of chats? Or depending on what you were talking about, like?
Yeah.
But would you like a genuinely good conversation with them now?
I think that would be good.
Because the things I was telling you, remember how we had a chat here about travellers and, say, travellers' tradition and stuff like that. And I talked about, say, when my mother got married and all that. I gathered all that from her. Do you get what I'm saying? So basically, she just blew me out of the water, being honest with you.
She talked the head up.
So she would have a great conversation about that kind of stuff. But it's only a matter of just if she was willing to. We'd probably have to bring the studio to her and instead of bringing her to the studio.
I'll sweet talk her. I think your ma would be well able for it.
Yeah.
I think she'd be well up for it.
Yeah, but you interviewed her before and she seemed to be okay with that.
Yeah.
She get the shawl on there and she's all cozy.
Yeah, once she gets warmed up, I think she's grand. She'll get into a conversation. She talk for ages, like. But I'm going back. I'm going to push the point. A young settled woman.
A young settled woman. I don't know, Dean. Is she a film star or something?
Here's someone I'm going to throw out.
Not asking for much.
Here's someone I'm going to throw out. In this country recently, young Kelly Harrington from the inner city has shown excellence in our field and really been an ambassador for working class communities and so on. I would be fascinated and intrigued for me, you and her to sit down for an hour and a half and have a conversation. Would that interest you?
You're putting me in the spot now, you know?
I am, yeah. Why shouldn't I? We're 10 podcasts in. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Call the lads in here, tell them it's going to be a fight, will you?
It's not all going to be lads. We're going to have to get over that. We will have men sitting here.
Please, God.
But we'll also have older traveller women. But we'll also have younger women as well.
I think the best thing to do, Dean...
You didn't say yes or no then.
Instead of falling from the top of the ladder, I think we start from the bottom, yeah?
Yeah.
And move up along. How about that?
You're saying Kelly is the top of the ladder.
You're the type of guy, Dean, that would break a man's confidence like that.
Why would I?
Because you're pushing straight into the deep end.
I think that you would. What's that phrase? I think you'd get in and start swimming. I think you'd be great at it. I don't know. I think doing one of them, you would break that resistance that you have.
Dean, you never answered me a question earlier on, did you?
Go on.
I asked you, did you ever take the time and stop and try to help a homeless person?
I have.
You wiggled yourself out of that 3 times.
No, I just changed. We talked about that, and I'm moving it on to now. We are going from podcast 1 to podcast 10. Me and you have explored all types of conversations.
But we really want to talk about homeless stuff, didn't we? Because it's let's say, I don't know how to explain it, but I have a sort of passion for it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and we've talked about that this week, and we talked about it previous weeks as well. But from now, this is episode 10. We've had 10 episodes to get to know each other.
Yeah.
And you know that the next evolution of this podcast is that we invite guests in.
Right.
And we will invite a number of male guests in. But after a while, we will inevitably need to take the next brave step.
You never answered my question, Dean.
Call your
This
mother
is
in.
4 times you got out of this question, right? Go ahead, answer it.
Yes, I have. I've helped many
You have.
many people, not just
Because you
homeless.
give me the impression a few times that you wouldn't be one for helping people who are down now, kind of thing, in a sense where just a little. We're not asking you to set them up a new car, a new house, or give them a bank account.
Are you talking about yourself?
No, you. We're talking about you.
Are you talking about you being
you-
you're the person who needs help?
If you can do that for me, I wouldn't mind. Yeah, I wouldn't say no.
What are you looking for?
I don't mind holding out a cup or a hat. Answer the question.
The question
Would you
is,
be willing to help a homeless person on the street?
I've done it many times.
Have you?
Yeah.
That's good. Give me an example.
When you mean help them, what do you mean?
You know what you remind me of right now?
Go on.
You told me here a few weeks ago on the podcast, yeah? You had 27,000 friends in Ballymun. I asked you to name one of them.
Oh, funny.
And you couldn't even name
You're a
name
stuttering
one.
fool. You're a stuttering
Now
fool.
I'm saying, Dean,
You'll
name.
crumble.
Give me
You'll
an
crumble under
example.
investigation. I don't want to blow my own trumpet, and I know that you're trying to wiggle out of another conversation that I started 5 minutes ago about
Yeah, go
having
ahead.
guests on. Look, this is episode 10.
You still didn't answer the question.
You know I've
I
helped
let you
lead
off.
loads of
Yeah, I let you
people.
off with it. Let you off with it.
You know that I've helped loads of people.
Yeah, blushing there now,
you know
Dean,
that,
you're okay.
You know that I can't walk past a person without feeling something or, wanting to help people. You know that. And I know that about you as well. That's not the question here. The question here is, where are we going with our conversations? And I think that we're heading into really interesting territory.
I think we're going right into bankruptcy right now as we speak. Goodbye,
I think that we should show humility. We should show courage. We should be honest with each other. We should be not fearless, but we should be brave. And we should have a bit of crack. And we should go places that most people in podcasts like this
Dean, the difference is
haven't gone before. A conversation between a countryman and a traveller man. There are very rare things in this country.
Yeah, that's right. So you should treasure this.
I do.
Because I could sack you any minute.
The thing is what you were going to say.
Every time I was going to say something, you just nyap, and then it just leaves my head again. Huh? So, yeah, you're right about that. But it's probably very rare about the traveller and the countryman. But you have to think, what traveller wants to hang around with you, Dean? Who wants to?
I think you actually really
Me.
enjoy my company. Are you having fun doing these? This is
I actually enjoy the chats, yes.
yeah.
That's what it is. We're having here a chat, isn't it? I like the chat, yes.
What do you like about them?
Well, what I was saying to you was a minute ago, the difference with the countryman and the traveller is the countryman is more open to what he talks about. Myself as a traveller, I'm not as open as I probably should be with conversations, or maybe, I don't want to be. But back again to the one thing, there's things that the countryman will almost talk about anything. Am I right?
It could be,
Almost.
yeah. Sometimes they talk too much.
I know that. I've learned that from you, yeah. But the traveller man is...
That was a little dig.
Yeah. He... there's things I said earlier on he doesn't want to talk about. He's embarrassed to talk about. Now, I'm speaking for myself here, right? The best way of saying it. And I'm guessing there's a lot of travellers the same thing, yeah? So there's no point in me trying to say to you, Dean, we can talk about anything you want here. That probably won't happen on my side of it.
I think you are open to having conversations that
I don't
normally
mind
you
having
wouldn't have
conversations.
had.
No, but listen, as I said earlier on, we're missing the campfire here, right?
Yeah.
Right. I can talk about absolutely anything, as long as it's within reason. You see?
I'll have any car once it's black.
So basically, I'm the one that's clamped down here. You have all the freedom.
And I'm encouraging you, and one of the reasons you know this, one of the reasons you're sitting in this room is because you can see that freedom in front of you.
Yeah,
and
but
you're interested in it.
Also, the other thing about it is also, right, I think I have more responsibilities than what you have.
Yes, you do.
I think I have more concerns than what you have. And
Okay.
you've shown you've proven that to me, because you yap, and you don't care what you say and what you don't say. Whereas I'm trying to think of, look at all it. I'm not even going there, like you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to put myself in this situation, that situation. I'm going to try at least.
I think you are trying.
So I'm being sort of more careful than what you are.
But I think you're being
But
more
you want me
courageous
to
than
be,
I am as well.
but maybe I am in a different sense. Yeah?
You're
Like I'm
definitely
sitting
taking
here.
more risks here than I am.
That's the point I'm trying to make to you, yeah.
Yeah. There's
So
definitely more
that's
for
what
you-
means-
There's definitely more to lose on your end than there is on my end. But I
Yeah.
think there's more to gain for you as well.
It depends what you want to talk. As I said, it depends what the conversation is or where it leads to. So that's why I told you on our next podcast, we're going to talk about you. We're going to talk about the Countryman. We're going to talk about his history. And I hope you know some of it.
Well, the next podcast, we have our guest. We have our first
Don't
guest.
just tell me about Ballymungus. I'm sick of listening to you
The
about
next
Ballymungus.
podcast, which is 11, we have our first guest.
Hopefully, yes.
So-
Hopefully, don't jump on the what you call the wagon there yet.
No, we've done 10.
Yeah, but let's hope we get someone to say yes.
We're ready. We will.
Can you catch somebody? Are you going to kidnap somebody? What's going to happen?
So the next one,
You have to ask people first. Will you come into our podcast?
episode
They
11.
either say yes or no. If they say no, how can we guarantee you're going to have? How are we going to guarantee that we have a guest on our podcast?
I hope you are enjoying these. I'm having a bit of fun.
Huh?
We're exploring stuff. I am pushing Martin a little bit, but I think he's ready
You
to
can't.
be pushed.
You can't be putting a stamp on something. Yeah, here it's official. We're going to have somebody here on our next podcast.
No, we will. We definitely will.
I hope so.
Between the two of us, we grab somebody.
Well, I'm going to leave it to you. How about that?
Yep.
Because you're the one that's giving all the guarantees.
Episode 10, which was a little bit about homelessness and a little bit about why we're trying to do this podcast and where we think we're going with it. We're loosening up a bit. It's uncharted territory.
We're like Max. Did you ever watch Max and Paddy? You did?
What's that?
Did you ever watch Max and Paddy in the camper van?
No.
They're travellers again, yeah?
Oh, is it?
No, they're not. They're English.
Nothing ever comes
Yeah, where is it?
easy. So nothing ever comes easy. We're chancing it. We're
Dean.
pushing it out a bit.
If you have a day job, stick with it, son.
See you soon.
Bye-bye. Cheerio.
So that's us for this episode, a Traveller and a Countryman podcast. If you like it, let us know, share it around, and we'll see you on the road.